Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Brawley. I am the first vice president for the Hamilton Secondary Unit. And if you've accessed this presentation, this PowerPoint, it's because you're interested in seeing the presentation called All Other Virtues. And it's a PowerPoint about protecting your job, empowering teachers, and navigating liability and rights within the workplace. Now, I have had the opportunity to visit Bishop Bryan Catholic Secondary School and St. Mary Catholic Secondary School, and I might still be getting out to some of the sites. But if not, or even if I do visit your school and you can't make it for whatever reason, this is an alternative to seeing what it is that we were trying to do. Okay, so the first thing that we start off with is the duties of your union officials. So if we move to the next slide here, in the Education Act, it talks about the role of the association representative. Okay, so they may call it union steward or shop steward or several different names. The reality is that's your staff representative, the one that's in your school. So she or he is the first person that you as a teacher will go to if you have a question or a concern. Oftentimes, that's the first person that your principal or vice principal will go to. Myself, being the first vice president, that administration doesn't necessarily have to talk to me or bring things to my attention. The first line of defense is your staff representative. The only time someone like myself would get involved is if my president, and in this case it's Sergio Cosoilo, if he contacts me and says, well, I need you to go into that school, make an appointment with that principal for this reason, then and only then do I supersede the role of the staff representative. Otherwise, that role of staff rep is very important. We go through some of the duties, and that's the duty of your staff rep. Things like supervision, several different items. We get into the role of your principal. Your principal has roles according to the Education Act. And the one that I want to point out was student discipline. As teachers, sometimes we feel that that is our responsibility to address student behavior. Although we oversee that behavior and we report it, ultimately it's up to the principal. They're the ones that will issue suspensions or what have you. Your students, duties of your student. Yes, believe it or not, even in today's day and age, the Education Act will tell you that they have duties. They themselves are supposed to exercise discipline. They're supposed to be obedient, so on and so forth. This is where it gets interesting, and this is why I did this presentation. Duties of a teacher. If you notice, the one about the principal and the student was quite reasonable. My opinion, and most people agree, this is where it gets, if you will, kind of silly. Duties of a teacher. According to the Education Act, 264, Section 1, a teacher is to inculcate by precept and example respect for religion and the principles of Judeo-Christian morality and the highest regard for truth, justice, loyalty, love of country, humanity, benevolence, sobriety, industry, frugality, purity, temperance, and, just in case they miss one, all other virtues. This is why I named this PowerPoint, this presentation, this in-service, call it what you will, all other virtues. If you read through that carefully, slowly, and think about it, it is quite involved. We move on to 28 ways for a teacher to lose their license, okay? And some of them, I would say, are kind of obvious, and some of them, like that last statement, cover quite a bit. And there's a lot of room for interpretation, and that gets dangerous. Some of the obvious ones, is for an example, some that I highlighted here, like number 1, providing false information, failing to maintain standards of the profession, verbally, physically, psychologically, or emotionally, sexually abusing students. This is very obvious. Being under the influence, again, obvious. Failing to keep records. Your marks have to be submitted, and they have to be submitted in good order. Supervising your students adequately. Once again, supervising, reporting their behavior, ultimately not being responsible for it. Supervising. We move on. Putting students at risk. And then it gets into things like members being regarded as disgraceful, dishonorable, or unprofessional. Conduct of unbecoming a member. Okay, and once again, we start to get into some more general statements. Practicing the profession while a member is in a conflict of interest. Now, there's a lot of examples of that. One obvious one would be if you're a teacher and you also run a private school. Okay, that would be considered something that might be conflict of interest. Okay, we move on. And since we're on the topic of the Ontario College of Teachers, one of the questions that I asked the people attending the in-person presentations was, the Ontario College of Teachers, are they your friend? We know that we pay them every year faithfully, but some of us may not be aware. Are they your friend? So when the Ontario College of Teachers wanted to increase our fees so that they could pay off their building, you see a picture there, quite a nice building. Here is what the covers of their publication looked like. Now, before I show you that, just have a look at that building. Okay, that's in Toronto. That's worth quite a bit of money, and typically you won't see too much of the inside of that building. You can maybe find a photo here and there. For the most part, you only see that, the outside. It's quite a beautiful building inside and out, okay? So keep that in mind. This was one of the publications. Okay, all along, they were trying to get us to give them more money. Okay, so you see a young man in a tie in a busy stairwell. Students look happy, safe, balanced, going about their business. Okay, teachers happy, students look happy. You move on. This gentleman as well. He looks happy. He's sitting there, perhaps waiting to start one of his practices. He's coaching or teaching phys ed, and there's hockey. There's some bowling pins, I think, and some baseballs, some soccer balls, volleyballs, basketball. Okay, this is a rendition of somebody who is, your ideal teacher who engages students. Okay, we kept saying, no, you tax us enough. You have enough money. We're not interested in paying for your building. You can do that on your own. You can mortgage that the way you wish. So when we said no, they took exception to that, and we were painted as predators. Okay. Now, who remembers this? Okay, this was us being painted as predators, because at that point we had dug our heels in and said no. Now, we forced them to retract this, but this is still out there. I was able to go online and find this, okay? It'll never be completely erased, and we push back heavily. But this is the way we were perceived, or meant to be perceived. So are they our friends? Absolutely not. Here's a question that I posed. Can a teacher get cleared of wrongdoing by the law but still lose their teaching license and be found guilty by the Ontario College of Teachers? Okay. Most people said, no, I don't think so. Okay. But they can, because the law says beyond a reasonable doubt, and the Ontario College of Teachers will say it's a balance of probability. So you probably are guilty of those allegations. Probably. Okay. That is scary, and I think most of us would agree. Here's another question I asked. Are administrations subject to discipline by the Ontario College of Teachers? Most people shook their head no. They are. They are also. But why are principals and vice principals rarely in the conversation when it comes to the discipline of the Ontario College of Teachers? Well, number one, they are well-versed. They know, this is why I'm doing this, so that we know what our rights and liabilities are. And the Ontario College of Teachers salivates over disciplining teachers, not administrators. I'm going to show you a video, and this video is called On Thin Ice. Now, the first time that I did this in service, I would suggest it was about 4 years ago, maybe 5. I went to the schools like I'm doing now. And I would suggest that at this time, I felt that maybe this video was slightly outdated. Now, when I asked for informal feedback, some emails, some conversations, nothing formal like a survey, but just a lot of conversations, most people said, well, it is a little bit of an older video. However, the parallels are still very strong and they apply. So I want to show you this video that was created by Provincial Office, and it actually physically took place in one of our schools, St. Mary Catholic Secondary School. Okay, so you might know some of these people.
We know that teaching is challenging, rewarding, and fulfilling. But today, we must also be conscious of the hazards. Teachers across Ontario face an increasing number of allegations of unprofessional behavior, launched most often by students or their parents, and despite the fact that the vast majority are found to lack merit, these allegations inevitably create havoc. When pulled from the classroom and informed that an investigation is underway, teachers are devastated, and in the weeks that follow, it only gets worse.
I think that teachers need to be aware from the outset that it can happen to anyone. Any teacher can be blindsided by an allegation, as I was out of nowhere. Part of me wanted to just abandon teaching altogether. It's a lot easier just to walk away and say, forget it, I can find another career. Part of me knew that I was in the right, so I wanted to fight it, and there was a lot of anger. And part of me was fearful that even if I continued teaching, there would be people still raising an eyebrow.
Scott faced a claim of a sexual nature that was eventually found to be false. The complaint was withdrawn, but the impact is lasting. Meanwhile, a troubled boy accused Lou of hitting him during a liturgical celebration.
It took about 12 days for me to find out what the nature of the charge was. It took about another 2 weeks to get parental permissions so that the student witnesses could be interviewed by the Catholic Children investigator. Once that investigation was done, of course, my name was cleared, but it took another month for me to come back to school.
When Mary was still in the classroom, she was falsely accused of picking up an intermediate student and whipping him across the room.
Driving home, I was shaking. I didn't know what to expect. I was afraid. I was confused. I came out of nowhere. I got home. I had no clue what to do next.
What she did next, the smart move, was to call OECTA.
OECTA is really responsible, and so the first person I went to after I received notice from the principal that I had to be removed from the classroom was the OECTA rep at my school. We then called OECTA Provincial and waited. Unfortunately, the worst part.
All school board employees, including teachers, have a legal responsibility to report suspected child abuse to the Children's Aid Society. Unfortunately, once an allegation has been made, school administrators, constrained by legislation and board policies, often step back and are not always supportive of teachers.
After teaching for my board for 32 years, The day the accusation arrived, my board completely distanced itself from me. I was forbidden to contact any of my peers, forbidden to appear on any board property. I was advised not to be near children, so I couldn't even pick up my 5-year-old from daycare.
Mary, Scott, and Lou, deeply shocked by the challenge to their integrity, speak out to warn others. On the other hand, they now know that we have the power as individuals and supported by our union to avoid or reduce the impact of an investigation. To protect yourself and your professional standing, you must understand your obligations under laws that pertain to teaching and the welfare of children. Learn the roles of the Children's Aid Society and the Ontario College of Teachers. Be aware, too, that a police investigation can lead to criminal charges. Establish and maintain boundaries with students to avoid hazards that can put you in jeopardy. And know what to say and do if you are informed that you are under investigation. To understand your legal obligations, we must review the mandate of the CAS under the Child and Family Services Act.
I think the key to understanding Children's Aid Societies and their work is that their main priority is the protection of children. They have to do that vigorously, and that is their sole and main role under the Act.
I think the Catholic Children's Aid plays a very heavy hand, and I think that that they made a lot of mistakes. Even though the individual people understand how serious those mistakes are, the reality is that those mistakes are extremely damaging and hurtful to myself and to my students.
It felt as though I was being framed. The CAS takes the position that you're guilty until proven innocent.
The rule from courtroom dramas that an accused must avoid self-incrimination applies equally in real life.
A teacher's natural inclination is to explain the situation, justify their actions and their conduct, and to clarify what occurred. And in fact, teachers can do more damage by trying to explain in those immediate aftermath what occurred, what happened, because that information will end up as part of the investigation.
I wish that when the CAS comes and does an investigation, that they don't start with assuming guilt. Given that over 95% of those allegations come back not verified, I would wish that the CAS would give more detail in that outcome letter of why the allegation was not verified.
The Safe Schools Act, Bill 157, also requires that board employees report all dangerous or inappropriate student behavior to an administrator.
I have an incident to report.
What happened?
I was just coming out of my classroom and I saw that Sean was raising his voice, yelling at Jason.
Hey, good luck, Hey! Pipsqueak!
Sean?
You took my iPod!
No, he didn't.
Don't lie to me!
I'm not.
Don't lie to me!
Hey, Sean! What do you think you're doing?
This idiot took my iPod!
No, I didn't. I don't know what he's talking about.
You know what? Get to the office, now!
Looks to me like there's a case of bullying here, as well as there's a form of intimidation. Under the Safe Schools Act, there is no tolerance for bullying.
The duty to report is absolute. You don't have to investigate or verify your suspicions, but you must report, honestly, in detail, to CAS or administration, depending on the case. Failure to report might lead to charges of professional misconduct. The College of Teachers, our professional body, establishes and polices professional standards for teachers. That's desirable, unless you're called on the carpet.
Who does the College of Teachers represent, and what does this mean for teachers?
At the heart of the college's work is the public interest, and so the mandate, the overarching mandate of the college is to serve and protect the public interest. And of course, the way that our teachers conduct themselves, their very professional and responsible behavior, is the means through which we do inspire confidence in the profession.
When a teacher is accused of professional misconduct, what is the process that the college follows?
At the first stage, our investigation committee or a panel of that committee would look at it to see if it relates to professional misconduct or fitness to practice or incompetence. They may dispose of it at that level with a caution or admonishment, for example. And in more serious cases, they would refer it to a hearing that would be part of the responsibilities of a panel of the discipline committee or the fitness to practice committee.
Okay, I'm gonna come and help you.
My first piece of advice for teachers to stay out of trouble is to familiarize yourself with your rights and responsibilities under the Ontario College of Teachers Act. There's a regulation which lists 27 different things which are classified as professional misconduct.
Regardless of the circumstances of a complaint, OECTA is there to help.
A teacher got a letter from the college, a complaint from a parent saying that she failed to report a bullying incident. There were two boys fighting, and so I asked Jerry to give us his opinion of how we might address this under the Bill 157.
So the first thing I have to do is gather the facts and talk to the teacher and interview any other potential witnesses with respect to what happened. My understanding is that the teacher has talked to the vice principal, and the administration did approve of her actions. And our approach is going to be she used her professional judgment and she responded appropriately under the legislation and what her duties are as a teacher.
The joys of our profession, teaching well, watching students grow, can be capsized by hazards, including touching, fraternizing, one-on-one meetings, and the careless use of social media. Teachers today must use physical and social boundaries to avoid even the semblance of inappropriate contacts with students.
So, Sean, do you understand now how to do the format?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. You know what? I think the next time you write an essay, it will be totally fine. You'll do a great job.
Thank you.
Okay.
This teacher has innocently crossed several professional boundaries by sitting side by side with the door closed, and above all, with that friendly touch. There is a safer way.
Okay, Sean, your essay was great. It had a lot of good ideas, but unfortunately your works cited was lacking in a number of areas.
Okay, well, I'm having a bit of trouble trying to sort these books.
In many situations, from phys ed to shop classes, or simply to comfort a 7-year-old, it's hard not to touch. But we can and must abide by 2 rules. Never touch when you are alone, and never, ever, if you or the student are frustrated or angry.
One of the challenges of being a guidance counselor is meeting with students one-on-one. Their matters are usually of a personal or a confidential matter, and it's keeping a space where they feel confident enough that they can discuss with us, but open enough that they can be seen.
Late, but I still get them in.
And have you talked to your teacher?
Yeah, I have, and she's just being completely unfair about it, and I'm just so worried about getting into university, and she's not doing me any favors.
So I keep the doors open, the window open, so the students can always be seen, and a physical barrier between myself and the student. And while being very compassionate, we never, ever touch a student.
Interacting with special needs students at any level requires careful thought around boundaries and touching.
Well, you could use alternatives. You could do a high five. You could do thumbs up. You could use praise. There's all different kinds of things that you could use instead of giving that hug.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
How are ya?
Good.
Good. Here, give me a high five. That's good.
High five.
Or you can shake my hand. How's that?
Yeah.
You having a good day?
It's important to keep a proper paper trail. Documentation is key, as well as communication with parents on an ongoing basis, so that parents don't receive surprises.
The kindergarten teachers seem to run into more trouble because there's all sorts of kindergarten issues that children aren't ready yet to go to school. You know, they need help with their clothes, they need help with this, and sometimes they just need a hug. And it's really to make sure that you're never, ever, ever, ever alone with a child, and there's always other people around.
Come up over here, face your class.
Tension between teacher and student is often highest when discipline is required and emotions are running high.
In situations of discipline, absolutely, that we would have to be stern with the child. And sometimes children would respond to a fast 1, 2, 3, and I'm asking you to come here. And that's when we would have to be stern because they do only respond to the stern. But if it's the calming situation, then a calming voice might always be a good technique.
I've never had to, and all the times, actually had to physically put my hand on a student to either prevent them, stop them from hitting another student or hitting or hitting me. I think it's about being well organized, well structured, well planned, and the students understand what their expectations are and where they can go ahead and enjoy themselves in that type of program.
At the end of the day, I think we all have to remember that students are not our friends, that we're the teachers, we're the adults in that relationship, and we have to maintain that level of professionalism in everything we do.
Establishing and maintaining boundaries is a challenge in the classroom, but even more difficult in cyberspace. Watch out for the perils of email, Facebook, and emerging social media.
I think the boundaries have changed over the years. Maybe 15 years ago, there weren't the boundaries with the internet, for example, and that professional side of it. Do we contact students via the internet? Where, again, you know, that's a dangerous place.
If you're going to put anything on the web, and particularly using social media, make it your professional presence. Entirely professional. No personal information, no personal anything. And you have to remember that every single thing that you put on the web, in Twitter, in Facebook, is a public statement. And you imagine the parent reading it, you imagine the student reading it, you imagine your administration reading it, and you make sure that you've got stuff out there that's appropriate and that's, you know, been vetted, if possible, by a colleague.
We must measure the potential consequences of everything we say and do. But in the final analysis, care and common sense may not protect us from complaints that are vexatious or malicious.
Teaching has been all that interested me, so my reputation is all I have, leaving the profession. And when that got tarnished somehow, that really disturbed me.
I think the teachers need to be professional and cautious that everything they're doing is subject to scrutiny by students, firstly in your classroom, but also by parents and other administrators.
So what do you do when lightning strikes? When you're informed that you're the subject of an investigation by CAS, the college, or even the police? And racking your brain, you can't imagine what it's all about.
Teachers should be calling OWECTA whenever there is an investigation with respect to their employment relationship. That covers the College of Teachers, that covers Children's Aid Society, allegations of discrimination under the Human Rights Code, anything to do with your employer and the employment relationship. I urge you to say, yes, I will cooperate, but I wish to call OWECTA first.
Despite the challenges, or maybe because of them, teaching is a noble profession. On the best days, there's no life like it. It is harrowing, however, if you are accused of misconduct. If that happens, remember that you are not alone. Your union, the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association, is there to support you. We're out there together on that thin ice.
This is somewhat of something that I find humorous, but at the same time, it rings true. And you see this, 1 week they love me, 1 week they hate me. Both weeks I get paid. And I think that what I wanted to say here is that, you know, it's really nice if our principals, administrators, managers, HR, if they like us and if they appreciate us. That's really, really nice. But we do have to remember that this is our job, our vocation, and we are ultimately responsible for what it is that we do in front of our students and with our students. And when we do our job, we take pride. And although, yes, we do hear of some stories and some situations where some teachers may not follow the conduct of the profession, for the most part, we all try our best. So although we like to be validated by our administrators, that shouldn't be why it is that we wake up in the morning and do what we do. This presentation was more in terms of being mindful of the things that we should be aware of, not to, fearmonger. It is the reality, especially in today's climate. If you have any questions, what I want you to do is give me a call 905-719-1655. You can text that number as well. You can email me, mikeborelli.owecta@gmail.com. And you can obviously come to this website, mikeborelli.com or .ca. I've branded both. And you'll see things like this. And if I ever put another video up, some information, or maybe what I'll do is gather all your questions, concerns, and comments and then post them again in a video if you wish, you can come back to this website. What I'll end up doing is perhaps putting in your staff rooms on your OECTA boards through your staff reps a QR code. So all you have to do is, if you're thinking or if you hear that I have something posted or if I email you or what have you, you can go and you can get here and you can hear what it is that we're trying to do. Okay, thank you very much for listening. And again, don't ever hesitate to contact me.